Even more accusers have come forward now to say that they were molested and assaulted by presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. In a tearful interview given to CNN, former media beauty queen, the First Amendment, told reporters, quote, "I was sitting around minding my own business, protecting people's God-given right to express their opinions, when suddenly Mrs. Clinton began manhandling me and roughing me up. I seriously thought she was going to tear me to pieces. This didn't happen just one time, but over and over. And now that I've come forward, I have to tell you, I fear for my life," unquote. The curvaceous blonde amendment went on to say, quote, "I felt so ashamed about the way Mrs. Clinton treated me that I didn't come forward right away, but I think now that she's running for the highest office in the land, I have to speak. She was out of control and kept muttering something about how Citizens United allowed people to broadcast a documentary criticizing her, and she was going to make sure that never happened again, and then she just kept mauling me," unquote. That accusation came just days after the Second Amendment came forward to the New York Times, a former newspaper. Miss Second accused Mrs. Clinton of violently attacking her in public. "If she just wanted to rape me repeatedly," Miss Second said, "I might have kept it to myself, but I really think she's trying to kill me. The way I understand it, she wants rich, powerful people like herself to be protected by guns, but she wants to keep guns away from ordinary citizens because she's afraid they might protect me from people like her," unquote. Mrs. Clinton has repeatedly denied the allegations of misconduct, saying, quote, "This is just a vast right-wing conspiracy, like that whole thing about Bill having affairs and committing rape and me persecuting his accusers. It's an old story, and it's been covered, and it's time to move on. I have nothing but respect for amendments. In fact, some of my best friends are amendments. I'm telling the truth. No, really, I am. This isn't like all those other times. Really, this is the truth this time. No, really," unquote. Even as Mrs. Clinton was making her denials, however, another accuser was coming forward. In an emotional interview with Huffington Post, the rule of law told reporters that Mrs. Clinton had, quote, "ruined my life," unquote. "I used to be beautiful," Miss Rule of Law said. "All the guys at the Justice Department and the FBI were crazy about me, but now they've all turned against me to protect Mrs. Clinton. She abused me, she raped me, she sodomized me. Now look at me, I'm a mess." The interview ended with Miss Rule of Law sobbing helplessly. While other accusers, including the Fifth Amendment and the perjury laws, have come forward to say Mrs. Clinton abused them as well, many journalists say their stories won't get much coverage. New York Times editor Blithering Prevarication III told Meet the Press, "Stories about the Constitution are all well and good, but here at the Times, we're mostly just into tits and ass." Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
Hooray, hurrah, the Klavanless weekend is over, although I think for some time now, the Klavanless weekend is just going to extend every day. even when I'm here, it's like a Klavanless weekend. It's even raining in L.A. I mean, in L.A., this is like, when it rains in L.A., it's like, waterfall from Magic Place in Sky. We don't see this. Normally we would sacrifice a virgin to make it stop, but this is L.A., so you can't find one. So the press, the poor media is being picked on. The media are being picked on, since that's a plural. They are being picked on. They're being yelled at. People think they're corrupt just because they're corrupt. People think they're dishonest just because they're dishonest. What is going on? The New York Times ran this story, at least it's on the front page of my app. I don't know if it's on the front page of the Dead Tree edition. Criticism of the news media takes on a more sinister tone. This is getting... And here it starts. It says, "It sure does get exhausting working for the global corporate media conspiracy. Har, har, har." That's the lead. "The hours are horrible. You never know what the puppet masters are going to order up next, and there's no extra combat pay when at this point there clearly should be. I probably shouldn't joke, and yes, Twitter, that's what I'm doing. The anger being directed at the news media has become dangerous enough that some news organizations are providing security for staff members covering Trump rallies. Someone's going to get hurt has become a common refrain in American newsrooms." Too bad. It is too bad. I mean, that is a very, very sad thing just for a bunch of lying, corrupt people being run by corporate interests. I mean, why would anybody turn to a bunch of lying, corrupt journalists being run by corporate interests, completely biased on one side of the political spectrum, and call them completely biased, corrupt news media, journalists? Here is from Cheryl Atkinson, who I always love because she was one of the best broadcast investigative reporters in the country. She was with CBS. She ran lots and lots of stories about bad things in the George W. Bush administration. Obama came in and her stories started to get killed. So she was running stories about Benghazi, about the fast and furious gun running stuff, and they just would kill him. They'd go up the line and suddenly middle management would kill her stories. And so she had to quit, and now she's operating on her own as an independent. I've heard her speak. I didn't consider her particularly conservative. She was not informed on conservative issues as far as I was concerned. She just doesn't like powerful people, and she wants to expose them, which is what journalists are supposed to do, instead of what they are doing. Here's Cheryl Atkinson. The following accounts come from human sources, Freedom of Information Act documents, and WikiLeaks email. Here is a list, a partial list, because I'm not going to read the whole thing, of the collusion between the mainstream media and our friends on the left, the Democrat Party. The State Department considered AP reporters Matt Lee and Bradley Clapper friendlies and planned to place Hillary Clinton email stories with them and dictate the timing of their release. That's the Associated Press. Mark Ambeidner from The Atlantic asked a Hillary Clinton aide for advanced text of a speech. The aide dictated conditions, including, 1, you in your own voice have to describe Hillary's words as muscular, to which Ambeidner agreed. Okay? They told him how to describe Hillary. Ambeidner formerly worked for ABC, CBS, and National Journal. CNBC anchor John Harwood, who moderated a presidential debate between Trump and Clinton, appears to have offered helpful thoughts and analyses to the Clinton campaign. The Clinton campaign emailed that CNN politics producer Dan Merica and Clinton were basically courting each other. In an email, Democratic National Committee Chair Donna Brazile, then a CNN contributor, said she obtained an advanced presidential debate question and passed it on to the Hillary campaign. Brian Stelter at the New York Times, who's now at CNN, and we're going to come back to him, he was helpful in publishing the Media Matters narrative, a source told Daily Caller. Media Matters is the hit of the anti-left, the left-wing hit organization. New York Times reporter Mark Lebovich gave Hillary Clinton the opportunity to approve or veto her quotes. He later explained that was because he agreed to make the original interview on the record and required her approval to use selected pieces of it. Staffers at Media Matters say they knew they could dump stuff to Ben Smith, formerly of Politico, now editor-in-chief at BuzzFeed, according to Daily Caller. Ben Smith, this is a quote, Ben Smith will take stories and write what you want him to write. And finally, Democratic National Committee officials discussed placing a story with the Washington Post's Greg Sargent to put a positive spin on some bad news for Hillary Clinton. Gee, and this annoys people on the right? I can't understand it. Just because we're being, I want to start today with Ken Bone. Okay, Ken Bone, Ken Dry Bone. Okay, Ken Bone, you will remember, is the guy who stood up and asked a question at the debate. Here he is at the debate.
We have one more question from Ken Bone about energy policy. Ken?
What steps will your energy policy take to meet our energy needs, while at the same time remaining environmentally friendly and minimizing job loss for fossil power plant workers?
Mr. Trump, 2 minutes.
Absolutely. I think it's such a great question.
Okay, so something about the sweater, the glasses, the mustache, the comb over, he just looked like kind of this fuzzy, sweet, nice little guy, which I'm sure he is, right? So Jimmy Kimmel, he becomes a star. Jimmy Kimmel has him on. Here he is with Kimmel.
Joining us now from St. Louis on our big Cisco screen, the Wall of America. Please welcome Ken. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Jimmy. How are you this evening?
Well, I'm doing well, and I'm very grateful for to you for spending time with us tonight. Do you have any idea of how adorable you are? First, I want to say.
That's a definitive yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. So when I saw you last night, I was immediately emailing our producers on the show to try to get you. When did you find out that you'd suddenly become famous?
We weren't allowed to have our phones or any electronic devices with us. So when I turned my phone back on, when I got back to my car at about 10:15 Central, and I had a few thousand missed messages, I started to think that maybe today was going to be a long day.
Did you know your fans are now calling themselves boneheads?
That's fantastic. I've been calling my family that for years.
All right, cute little story, right? Little fuzzy guy gets up, asks a question. He's talking about the environment and energy and stuff like this. So it's like an actual question as opposed to who said what to whom and who's grabbing who by the what. You know, so everybody just went like, there were all these funny Twitters going, you know, the world can only be saved by the fuzzy red sweater of Ken Bone. And Bone's not allowed to take the sweater off whenever he appears. He has to be in this red sweater. Okay, then they start to look, and he has a Reddit account. And he says at one point that the Trayvon Martin shooting was justified, but George Zimmerman didn't seem like a very nice person. That was not exactly the way he put it. The press now starts to investigate this guy, okay? They start to investigate Ken Bone. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is deeply, deeply offensive. And they find out on Reddit he said he looked at Jennifer Lawrence's nude pictures. Let me tell you something. There are two kinds of guys who didn't look at Jennifer Lawrence's nude pictures: homosexuals and liars. Those are the two, okay? Because we all looked at Jennifer Lawrence. Not some, not everybody but your husband. All of us looked at Jennifer Lawrence's nude pictures, and they were great. They were terrific. So he says he watches porn, and he's happy he got a vasectomy because now he doesn't have to wear a condom with his wife, by the way. He's like, you know, the guy's sleeping with his wife. You know, by the way, what happens if you say that porn should be censored? What does the left say about you then? Then the left says, oh, you're a Puritan, you're a Christian, you know, horrible Nazi. And then if you look at porn, it's suddenly, oh, now we can expose you because you thought Trayvon Martin, when he was slamming George Zimmerman's head against a curbstone, deserved a bullet in the face. You know, I mean, come on. This is the guy is, you're not allowed to have an opinion. And what they say is, well, now he found out what it's like to be famous. That's not true. What he found out is what it's like to be famous when you have an opinion that is not sanctioned by our Nazi press. And they're complaining about the fact that Trump's followers have swastikas on CNN, and our friend John Nolte has his Twitter handle is CNN is Hitler, which I think is hilarious. But the thing is, it's fascist to do this to an ordinary guy. And don't tell me they did it to Joe the plumber. You know, they did it to, and they didn't do it to Cindy Sheehan. Remember Cindy Sheehan, the anti-war protester who had lost a son overseas, and Maureen Dowd said, oh, well, she has absolute moral authority because she lost a son overseas. And then when she started protesting the war and Obama was president, she vanished. She was on the front page. And yeah, they always have these excuses. Well, it's summer. We had nothing else to report, so we're reporting on Cindy Sheehan's protest. They always have excuses for why they're biased to the left, but they never need excuses for why they're biased to the right because they never are. And the thing is, let's go back for a minute to Joe the plumber. Remember what happened with Joe the plumber? He came up to Obama and said, how come I'm getting taxed more? And Obama said, I'm taxing people over $250,000 who make over. Well, let's watch it. Here it is.
My attitude is that if the economy is good for folks from the bottom up, it's going to be good for everybody. If you've got a plumbing business, you're going to be better off if you've got a whole bunch of customers who can afford to hire you. And right now, everybody's so pinched that business is bad for everybody. And I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
So they exposed Obama for being a socialist, which Obama is. And so they investigated Joe the plumber. The guy's a plumber. He asked the question. He stepped up and asked the question. They do not do this to you if you're on the left. It does not happen. And the other thing about that, I just want to reiterate, because Hillary Clinton said the exact same thing at the debates. Over $250,000, I'm going to tax you because that's where the money is. Let's just play that clip. Have we got that?
I have said nobody who makes less than $250,000 a year, and that's the vast majority of Americans, as you know, will have their taxes raised, because I think we've got to go where the money is. And the money is with people who've taken advantage of every single break in the tax code. And yes, when I was a senator, I did vote to close corporate loopholes. I voted to close, I think, one of the loopholes he took advantage of when he claimed $1 billion loss that enabled him to avoid paying taxes. I want to have a tax on people who are making $1 million. It's called the Buffett rule. Yes, Warren Buffett is the one who's gone out and said somebody like him should not be paying a lower tax rate than his secretary. I want to have a surcharge on incomes above $5 million. We have to make up for lost times because I want to invest in you.
Okay. Here's the worst thing the press never does. They never question the premises of the left. They never question the premise of the left. Let's just think about this for a minute, what she just said. First, I know this is an unpopular. Oh, I have to say goodbye to Facebook. Because I wouldn't have to say goodbye if you would subscribe. If you would subscribe, you could come over to the Daily Wire and watch the whole thing. You cheap people, come on, subscribe and come over.